Welcome to Lessons from the Field. This is an interview series where we bring in a diverse array of guests who have a common thread of passion in pharmacy and pharmaceutical services. I'm really happy to have Samir Shah today. He's a 2003 graduate, also a graduate of the MHA from our School of Public Health. And Samir worked in our hospital pharmacy department for some time. And he's been at Sinai Health now and director of pharmacy, and has moved up. He's now executive director for professional and clinical services over quite a portion of the hospital there. And we're going to ask him a series of questions as we do that'll elucidate his experience and advice for our guests from Samir for the benefit of our students, alumni, and friends. So let's go ahead and start. Samir, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little bit of a tour of your career since the time you graduated from the PharmD program.
Well, great, Glenn. Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name is Samir Shah. I'm the System Executive Director of Clinical Professional Services for Sinai Health System. I started in pharmacy school, obviously University of Illinois, and a quick recap, I went to school and I never left. I shifted over to University of Illinois Hospital as a clinical staff pharmacist. I spent time in a ton of different areas within the hospital, got to learn a lot with regard to, operations, working in the satellites and the pediatric floors, the gen med floors. Got to spend a lot of time in all facets of pharmacy care, pre-pack, really everything, just learning IV rooms and just kind of getting a good taste of everything, knowing that down the road I wanted to venture into some sort of administration or management role, and it was like the perfect capsule, almost of 9 years of experience. And then during my time at UIC, when I was practicing as a pharmacist, I actually started going to my school again for my master's in healthcare administration right down the street. And again, another great time I had there. I was basically working full-time as a pharmacist and then doing part-time school. And then one of the cool things I was able to do there with the MHA program was actually work and do an executive internship. So towards the tail end of the master's program, I was able to spend time at Sinai, working with the CEO and COO as their executive intern. So I was able to, one day a week, I'd be going to all these different things like board meetings, finance meetings, working with the CFO on things, working with just so many different components of healthcare administration that were, not pharmacy at the time, but it strengthened my pharmacy career, quite frankly, because I got to understand a little bit about what every component of a healthcare system was, and it helped me become a stronger pharmacy director at the time because I understood the needs of every leader within the organization. So it was a great time there, and I did that for about 1.5 years, and then I continued to work as a staff pharmacist, and eventually I made a shift from U of I to Mount Sinai Hospital as the operations manager. My first venture into being a manager. It was a ton of work up front. But then from that point on, every year, I would get a little bit extra responsibilities. But to me, it was a great, stepwise approach over the years in terms of gaining experience and not gaining too much experience at once. It was really, I was able to absorb everything and really learn the details of how to become successful in every area. So I was an operations manager, then moved into a director role for pharmacy for Mount Sinai Hospital. And Sinai Health System is it's the largest safety net health system in Chicago. So it's composed of 4 hospitals, 2 acute hospitals, a rehab hospital, and a children's hospital, a freestanding rehab hospital, and then 18 to 20 clinics. So it was a fairly integrated health system within the west and southwest side of Chicago. So I was able to become the director of pharmacy for Mount Sinai Hospital, the rehab hospital, and the clinics, and then eventually took on, when Sinai merged with Holy Cross Hospital, I took on a system level approach for being the director, and then added on respiratory, and then was able to add that component over about 1 year. And then now I was able to take on a larger role within the organization as a system executive director for clinical professional services, which include inpatient, outpatient pharmacy, ambulatory 340B components, respiratory, dialysis service line, the cancer service line, diabetes service line, and wound service line as well. So we've, been growing in multiple areas within the health system. And for me now, it's just managing all of these different areas. A big component of it is still pharmacy, but I have two wonderful directors and a great leadership team in pharmacy too, helping to keep us advancing throughout the past few years. So it's been that's kind of where I am right now.
Yeah. Wow. It's sounds like a huge role that you have now, and also sounds like the MHA really set you up well for that. Also the PharmD, of course, but sounds like
Yeah, it was a tag team.
Experience. Yeah.
Agreed. It was a tag team of the PharmD and the MHA. I mean, I feel like the pharmacy enterprise is so complex. So from our end, the Sinai Health System, just like University of Illinois, is a very complex pharmacy enterprise, very robust. So not only inpatient care, we have decentralized model here, specialists on all areas within the hospital. So there's a very robust P&T. Pharmacy is a big player in there, quite frankly, doing a lot of the work. And then you have your ambulatory side, 340B component, managing labor and people, and then managing finances and doing all of that. So I think that along with the clinical knowledge base we have, we're able to be very dynamic outside of the pharmacy scope. And I find that, the PharmD plus the MHA has been an amazing to launch, along with the experience grown to be able to really apply this to so many different areas of service lines. It's been pretty remarkable, at least to see what, I didn't think I can do this. And then you go through it and you're like, oh my God, I'm able to apply this. And you don't realize how complex the pharmacy world is. And I don't think enough students realize that yet, but when they go through it, it's kind of like I'm an example of that, I guess.
Yeah, right. Really builds you for the next level.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so, Samir, one of the things that our students often would like to hear a little bit more about is just the kind of typical day-to-day work that you do. And I know that yours is probably kind of all over the board now that you have responsibilities outside of pharmacy, but maybe you could briefly just tell us some of those.
Yeah, and that's kind of funny because like the hardest question I had to figure out the answer to. It's a pretty dynamic day. As you know, I'll start with the basics. I mean, we're really rounding on the departments and the staff. So I try to make a time every day to round on the teams in the various areas, including our pharmacy teams. We have key leaders, so that report up through me, our system directors. So definitely have a lot of one-on-one. Lately, it's been hourly with all of them, given the pandemic. But we do a lot of meetings with regard to how the day is going or week is going, and how we can handle week-to-week business versus month-to-month versus our overall strategic plan. Then the organization has a lot of things going on, whether we're expanding our new EMR. So there's a lot of talks about and meetings about, that review.
Mm-hmm.
Then from there, system accreditation meetings, quality safety meetings. I mean, there are just a lot of different components, and pharmacy has literally a huge role in each and every one of those with regard to making that final decision or strategies to help us improve, whether it be our outcomes related to one service line versus the other. So a lot of that, and then I would say lately it's been a lot of vaccination clinic meetings. How are we helping to stand that up over the past month or two? So there's been a ton of task force activity there. I would say 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings a day there. And then, like I mentioned before, we're standing up other clinics as well. So, so a lot going on with diabetes, wound, and dialysis as well. So I'd say every day it's just very dynamic. And then in the end goal is how are we going to grow out of the pandemic? I mean, we're going to beat this pandemic, but the end goal is like, how are we going to actually continue to grow as an organization? So in all our service lines, the ones that we have under myself actually are very key to our future growth and success. So it's exciting. We're actually adding infusion services too to one of the hospitals. So infusion center and building a little program there, which will involve a heavy mix of pharmacy as well. So with the USP 800 and all of that stuff as well, that just finished up. It's exciting that we finished that up.
Yeah, wow. So you have your hands in all kinds of things. And the next question we've asked this to other folks that we've had on this program before, but for you, it might be because you've kind of expanded your responsibilities recently. Be interesting to see how you respond. But as people progress through their career, sometimes it's hard to keep up with all of the clinical changes that might happen, and but there's also other knowledge, experience, and expertise that you need to continue to stay relevant. So how do you stay up on all of that in order to keep yourself contemporary as you've progressed in your career?
Yeah, no, I think still heavily involved. I'm always in constant learning mode, no matter what component or no matter where I am in my career. It's always a constant learning mode for me. And I think it should be for really any student. I mean, we're never going to be perfect. We're never going to know everything. Part of the excitement of having in embarking on your professional career is actually being able to, continue to learn and then feel a little bit uncomfortable as you grow through your professional career. But I think communication with your network of peers that you develop starting in pharmacy school is huge. The folks, you make it a point to meet and stay in touch with a lot of folks. We have, like, for pharmacy directors meeting monthly. We used to have pre-pandemic, I'm sure it'll start up again, where we were able to bounce ideas off each other. I have a network of pharmacy directors I continue to share input and advice from. I think getting advancing your degree in some way or component, which is, maybe your board certification, you continue to strive for. I would say, for others, it could be certifications on patient safety, becoming an expert. For me, I did Lean, Six Sigma, so a black belt in Six Sigma, which I think is very good for pharmacists. And actually for leaders, some of it is just through practice and developing and project implementation, but how do you develop the most lean, efficient, and accurate system? And I think that part has been, given not just the didactic part of it, but actually going through experiences of completing major projects and getting to that point of like a good operations along with low risk for errors. And that goes hand in hand with pharmacy, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I would say the other area is volunteering and internships. I think the internship that I mentioned before for me was very valuable, but I think pharmacy students should apply. You can get a job. I had a job too as a Walgreens pharmacy tech, but over here at Mount Sinai and Sinai Health System, we do volunteers with a lot of actually University of Illinois College of Pharmacy students, and they have a job, but they're coming over here working with our managers doing real life projects. Whether it be DUEs or analyzing data and putting together a poster. It's volunteer because if you were a pharmacy tech, which you should be as well, working, you have your job responsibilities to do for that day. So I think you can learn a lot in that component as well when you're learning for folks. So I mean, volunteering and internships, I think, are great. Just getting involved, I think, are just key pieces. And then to add, I would just say conferences and whether there be via teleconference or webinars or going to them. I think you could pick up a lot of valuable information. And the most important thing is if you can apply it to your organization.
Yeah.
It brings a lot of value, so you can learn there. And then lately, just daily updates. I sign up for as much daily emails as possible so I can get the emails coming to me and I can quickly read it and digest it and understand what's happening at a day-to-day level. So I mean, that's another tip for folks. Is just sign up. Most of the time it's free, but you can read a lot in short order there and have a good idea of what's going on.
Yeah, excellent suggestions. Well, we talked a little bit earlier. I mean, you mentioned your time here at UIC and how that prepared you, but is there more you'd like to say about your time as a student here, and maybe looking back, what were the activities or courses or experiences that you got that really helped prepare you specifically so that our students could maybe learn from that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I learned a ton. It was very fond memories of UIC. I think the students should really just enjoy their time there and enjoy the moments. I think to be able to, even having an amazing dean like you organizing all these things. I mean, this is pretty cool. I mean, to be able to get other folks' perspectives, I think is an important part of the College of Pharmacy. And being able to do this is pretty easy and convenient for everyone to take a look. But I think having access, a clinical program is excellent at the University of Illinois. We all know that. I felt like I got a little bit of a unique uh, opportunity to see the faculty there in two lights. You know, number one as a student, so and they were great there. But then when I switched over to being a clinical staff pharmacist, I worked so closely and built a lot of friendships with them,
Yeah.
and it was a totally different angle or lens. But the students really need to know that they're actually working. They're actually doing like clinical work, day-to-day clinical work. It's not theory. They're applying everything they're learning into real life practice. And I think that's something to be said for the students. They may not actually see that perspective until it's too late, you know, when they start working with them. But for now, they should really appreciate that. I thought the rotations were very robust and really all over the place. You have Chicago as your neighborhood, and a place like Sinai Health System as a neighbor too. So we have, you know, it's always nice, and I learned this from a lot of folks, is to get out. So not only should you do your rotations at University of Illinois Hospital, but get out and go to different places and understand how things are working elsewhere. It'll make you a much stronger pharmacist or future resident or whatever you plan to do down the road, because you see different areas of pharmacy practice in different settings. So I would say those are the 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 primary pieces of things that come to light. And I thought having fun with the, you know, extracurricular activities, being able to build that network of friends, because they can come and really help you as you embark on your career. You know, the fraternity has actually brought a lot of value as well. Very great memories of being able to and building a lot of long-lasting friendships. So it was fun while it lasted.
Well, good. Thank you. I'm sure our students will get a lot out of that. So maybe more broadly, you know, we're always looking for good tips for either our students or recent alumni, or even those of us that, you know, have been out a while. If you have tips for success at work or in life, or the balance between work and life, which is always something that we struggle with, especially these days.
No, it's a great question. I mean, most important at work is having fun. I would say is the most important thing. I mean, we talk a lot about employee engagement here at Sinai, and as does every other organization. Is how do we, you know, engage our employees? But it's a two-way street, quite frankly. So a lot of the staff and pharmacists and pharmacy technicians, or really any staff, just get involved at work. You know, I think that's a really thing. Build really strong relationships at work. I think you can really enjoy your time and feel as if you're doing meaningful work there. So I would say for pharmacists, when you're at work, I mean, focus on outcomes with what we do. I think we do a lot. Pharmacy as a whole does a lot of work with regard to so many different facets of healthcare, but really change your approach to see how well you're doing with it. And I think that would be a really important component. You know, whatever we're doing, how well are we doing? What is the end outcome? And are we getting there? If not, don't be afraid to think or rethink that approach as a team, right? That a lot of times we spend a lot of time on the things we're doing amazingly well with, but sometimes we have to take a step back and think about the areas that we may need to improve, that we're not doing well. We should be spending more time in those areas as a team. And I think if you start going in with that mentality, it'll take you a long way in your professional careers. One advice I was always given was like, you know, look in the mirror. Whenever you have any issues, the first place you look is not to the left or to the right. Look in the mirror. I've heard, and that always sticks with me. It's like whenever we're having issues, whether it be at work, most importantly at work, is like, how can you help be a part of the solution instead of going down the blame game, which I think people love doing first. And I think that's just the best advice I've gotten from that standpoint. And I think having patience with your career is another one. Like, don't just, especially with the new generation coming in, I think a lot of times it may just be that they're, you know, I see that they've done the job responsibilities are done, you know, like, let me move on. But have patience with your career. It takes time to really perfect it. And I would say I've seen some amazing residents and pharmacists come through and truly elevate their role and advance the practice of pharmacy in their role. So not only did they meet the requirements, they took it to the next level to make it, you know, much larger shoes to fill, you know. So I think from that end, I think that's the best advice is that, you know, have patience and kind of work towards developing your name, your brand, the type of pharmacist you are, and and I think that can speak and go a long way with regards to your professional career. So
Yeah. Wow, those are great. That's some great stuff there. Samir. I'm gonna have to go back and write those down myself. Like looking in the mirror is an important one, and that last one on having patience, those are key. So thank you. So maybe a more kind of futuristic, this kind of stems from what you were saying about, enjoying your work and the impact that you have. So as pharmacists, as in a profession where we obviously have impact, and maybe that's seen more so recently with the COVID pandemic and the role pharmacists have played there than any time in the past. But what are some of the things that you think pharmacists really need to focus on in terms of our impact, or maybe where are we going in the future, and what are things that our students could think about now for the impact that they might be able to have down the road?
yeah, no, I think it's a pretty exciting time, quite frankly, from a pharmacy perspective. I think, from a leadership standpoint, pharmacy leaders, when I'm looking at it from that lens, I think we just have to continue to figure out ways to advance the profession in advanced pharmacy practice in various settings throughout the organization. Where can we, whether it be a population health pharmacy team or transitions of care, specialty pharmacy, where the needs are for the organization, how can we help leverage that? And I heard that concept, even recently with the pandemic, that pharmacists are, are some of the most talented, but often in the U.S. healthcare system can be sometimes some of the most underutilized when they should overutilize the utility of them. So I think from my standpoint is how can we increase the utility of pharmacists, pharmacy students, pharmacy residents within really the whole health system, quite frankly, but for me, focusing it in within our organization. I think that is where pharmacy leaders have to fight for with regard to that. With Sinai Health System, they're very focused on being able to do that. They're very pro-pharmacy here. It's a wonderful, team here that really wants to put us in the right spot. So I get very little resistance. It's more like, where can we help and how can we help our community? And we've been able to do that, including embedding pharmacists in the diabetes centers that we're opening now. So kind of thinking about where we can do that is really important. I'd say for pharmacists, taking a look at just clinical knowledge base, being able to apply that comfortably is going to be very important in any setting. I think improving outcomes, I spoke about it before. How can we prove value? The more we can prove value instead of being and stay ahead of it, we created a portfolio of all our residency projects and really identified what we're doing, what was the problem, and how we were able to, and I shared this with you, Glenn, the last time you came, and we continue to add on. It's what is the problem? What intervention can pharmacy make, and is it working? And we have a clinical manager and our clinical team. They do an amazing job being able to show that. And if it's not working, they figure out a way to show outcomes and create the positive outcomes we need. So I think that part we have to continue to focus on, but not waiting for someone to ask you for it. Already be ready to submit that so we can continue to show and grow as we kind of rapidly progress, right? So I think focusing in on patient experience is really important. I think from a pharmacist standpoint, we need to get away from, I would say, working with physicians and working with the nurses is really important. But, I always used to say, like, the most impressive thing on HCAHPS, the patient experience scores we have, is when I hear comments about the pharmacists and the impact they made in a hospital setting or a clinic setting. So I think we have to strive for that. Getting out there, speaking to the patient, not only speaking to the patient, but continuing to do your constant roles, which is, driving excellence in pharmacy care within the organization. But I think I would say those are the key components for me in cost-effective approach. I mean, let's not let, one component of a pharmacy is, not only excellent care, but we need to figure out and always think about how can we have the most cost-effective approach to that care. So very strong P&T. One way we look at it on our end is our pharmacy. If you look at drug costs per admission for our hospital, it could be adjusted for case mix index or whatever it may be, but how well is our pharmacy performing? If we're able to keep, top tier, top echelon of departments for, lowest drug cost per admission, along with good quality scores, that's a sign of a very strong pharmacy department. So pharmacists have to think about their responsibility on both sides of the spectrum, not only providing clinical care, but helping improve medication access, as well as, having a cost-effective approach to the delivery of care. And I think those are the big things, like a bird's eye view of where we need to be as an organization. And then I would say just just have an open mind with the career progression. There's so many different opportunities for pharmacy that you can take. It's not just all, and I love our critical care team, but there's not that's not going to be hundreds of positions growing overnight. But well, guess what? Specialty pharmacy. There's working in a pharmaceutical company, and my family is a pretty good example of that. I have there's myself, but there's 5 of us. We're all pharmacists, and we're all working in different areas. My wife is a specialty pharmacist. My brother is an informatics pharmacist. One's a marketing manager for a pharmaceutical company. One's a medical director. So I mean, we can have our influence in different areas. But long story short, I mean, that's kind of where I think it's exciting for pharmacy right now, because you can really go in multiple directions.
Yeah. Wow. Great. Well, thank you, Samir. I mean, I guess as we wrap up, first of all, thank you for doing this. It was fantastic. Any last minute advice for our those graduating this year or soon as they start to embark on their career?
Yeah, no, I think just have fun. I think you've had a very challenging, different year per se.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, I mean, I think the students, from what I saw in the vaccination clinic, is all our pharmacy students are ready. It was a pressure packed last week. Leadership I saw with students was amazing. It was fearless. It's just the first time we've done a mass vaccination clinic, quite frankly. And I think a lot of the students, just from the meeting with them, rounding on them, they were just so excited. They were ready. So I think the curriculum at University of Illinois has prepared them to move on. And I think the most important thing is for them just to have fun. You said, move into their next role, continue to grow and learn. I mean, this is a different year like any other. So it's kind of hard to prepare for like the next month and the next month. But I would say just continue to keep pushing. And I know residency interviews are kind of going on at this point. It's going to be a little different interview process this year for everyone. And then the folks that are moving into retail, I mean, it's not only is it retail, but now we're shifting into mass vaccination for the whole nation. So I think everyone's going to be having access to different opportunities wherever they may be going. Just stay positive. That's the best advice I can give any student or future pharmacist, is be a positive influence wherever you go. No one wants to work with a negative person moving forward. You will find very quickly that your opportunities will diminish quickly, Yeah. So I would say just, if you can flip that switch on and just do that, I think it would be a great thing for your professional career. I always say, like, learn to roll with the punches, because right now nothing is perfect. And I think from that standpoint, you have to figure out a way to roll with the punches with your department, whoever you may be working with, right? And spend time with the managers that you work with, who your manager is. I would say the best advice is get close with them, understand what their needs are, and then understand how you can help them and help the department meet those needs, whether they may be metrics or patient outcomes or whatever it may be. So long story short, just have fun with it and be a positive colleague in whatever venture you take on. I think that's probably the best thing you could possibly do with your professional career, quite frankly.
Well, excellent. Thank you, Samir, so much for taking time to share all your experience and wisdom with our students and others. And really appreciate it. Great to see you again. Looking forward to the day when we can visit again too, maybe later in the summer or once we got enough people vaccinated. But
oh yeah, we'll get there.